Welcome to Mentoring Moments. Mentoring Moments is a sub-series of the E-commerce Edge podcast. It is composed of clips taken from Jason's one-to-one and group mentorship sessions. Another episode of the E-commerce Edge podcast with me, Jason Greenwood, your host. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome Mr. Jeremy Barker from Murphy Door to the podcast. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Absolutely my pleasure. And before we get into what Murphy Door is, you're what I like to call a serial entrepreneur. This is not your first rodeo. You run multiple businesses, you've started multiple businesses, you play in multiple spaces. But before we get into that, and before we get into a little more of your background, why don't you tell us how, obviously digital is a big part of the Murphy Door business today, but how did you see the writing on the wall that traditional methods of go-to-market, selling, etc., were moving more into the digital space? When did you see the writing on the wall that, hey, look, we need to be almost a digital-first company, otherwise we're going to really struggle moving forward?
I guess that journey started years ago when I started my shed business. In the mid-90s is when AOL started firing up. And we were marketing a ton using the US West Yellow Pages or Quest or whatever the company was now. And that was a preferred marketing scheme at the time. But at the same time, AOL started kicking in, and I was trying to figure out how to do a website or how to market other products through their online platform. But I have no patience. So every time I'd try to upload a picture, it would take 1,000 years as it filled in pixel by pixel. So I didn't spend enough time, truly, to be honest with you, on the early front side of the digital world, on the e-com side. But I knew that was going to be something special. And it wasn't because that I felt like that's where everything was gearing, but at that particular time, Quest seemed to be taking all my money, or US West, for my Yellow Page advertising. And I thought, man, if there's a cheaper or better alternative that can help me grow nationally rather than just extremely hyper local like a Yellow Page system, I thought e-com would be the way to go. In the early 90s, late 90s, I should say, it was really hard to find web builders and all the stuff that's at your ready today. So I looked into, again, very little attention span. So I didn't dive into it. I just high glazed over the top of it and said, it's going to be hard to do. And I went about whatever it took to make the next dollar. And then when the Murphy Door concept came around, it was one of those deals. I was a full-time firefighter, a paramedic in Roy City. And I really was looking for something more of a part-time basis rather than a full-time basis. Really, to be honest with you, was something that my desire was to fulfill like the backflow of extra cash needed to just exist. Fire doesn't pay that much. So I thought rather than having to open a big brick and mortar store, I could very easily open an e-com store, which would then allow people to shop 24/7 with the extreme goal of making money 24/7. Then people can go in, check out all every day, 365, 24/7. Again, I'd never really built a website per se. I've attempted a few. So that was my first venture into the e-com space. More looking for freedom, like I think a lot of people were, from having to be bound to the brick and mortar store, than to look at building this hyper monster. So anyway, that's the high flow of it.
I love that. Scratching an itch, so to speak, is always a good business motivator, no question about it. Now, why? And I like to say, as I was traversing your website, now in all transparency, we've never done business together before, but I had a chance to have a good gaze at the website. And I think I would call what you do almost like the James Bond of doors. Like they're the perfect hidden door, whether it be in a bookcase, whether it be in a shelf, whether it be a pool cue cabinet, almost no matter what it is, you specialize in the hidden door concept. And I really like that. Yep. Some of the videos that you have on the website, some of the products you demonstrate on the website, very impressive. The craftsmanship looks absolutely unbelievable. And I guess one of the other benefits in being digital first or online first is you don't have to have a showroom. You can have a factory that's in a cheaper part of town, more industrial side of town, where you don't have to have the prime real estate to build these products. But why this? Were you always into carpentry? Were you always into woodworking? Were you always into something like this? Or was this a completely out of the blue thing that you thought, hey, the market needs some James Bond kind of doors?
Jason, that's a really amazing question, because to be honest with you, I've never started a business, any of my businesses, in anything I knew how to do. So every business that I've ever started did not stem from somewhere that came from experience. And I know that sounds crazy to some. I've never read the E-Myth Revisited until the last few years. And I found it ironic because every business that I've ever started never was around something I was good at. I really found something I found interesting, but more or less something that I could really disrupt the market in the sense that I didn't find that they were doing a great job in it, or I felt like the products they were offering were subpar and there was major room for improvement. And I look at business more or less, what can I bring that's more monopolistic than cannibalistic to the marketplace? I love to be in a monopolistic market. And I know that people hate monopolies and they hate that game. However, when you're starting a business, it's much easier to exist in a monopolistic space. Cannibalistic, it's a race to the bottom. And monopolistic, you're setting the price, you're setting the expectations, you're setting the whole standard for the game. And so even at a young age, like when I did sheds, I'd never built a shed before. I was 18 years old, built a storage shed, and within a year I had all the Home Depots. So setting Home Depots up with a bunch of storage sheds around the country. And that one went really well outside of my ability to manage money. The rest of the business was fine. Manage money and trust people was my biggest problems. And of course, that comes with a young age. But the reason the Murphy door came about, really, to answer your question, is because my kids had a little theater room. I'm existing on a firefighter wage. And I wanted to build a cool ticket booth door for their space that would make it fun around neighbors that have really nice homes. And they'd have to come to our 1,750 square foot house, which I still live in today, by the way, and down to a cool little 4-seated theater room. And when I say theater room, I'm talking like 4 fold-out chairs theater room. It's a small theater room, but I thought if I made it awesome with theater room carpet and a super cool door, it doesn't matter what's on the back side. It's the journey there. And then once you turn on the movie, if the movie is good enough, they could care less what they're watching it in. So when I searched at the time, this was 2012-ish, early mid 2012, I started searching for theater room doors and hidden doors, and I couldn't really find anything. I had been exposed to the hidden door system concept in the past, but I couldn't find anyone that had really built a massive marketing and manufacturing scale around this specific super niche marketplace. So I took it upon a mission to build the hardware that it required to build the door. I'm very, I guess what should I say? I'm not really appeased with simple things. If I feel like there's a better way, my problem is I'll dig deeper and spend a grundle of money trying to find a better way, even though it's something as stupid as a hinge. And my initial concept for Murphy Door was to just sell the hardware, Jason. That was it. And because once it started rolling, everybody started asking for doors. We got into the cabinet side, which there again, I've never built hardware. I don't have a degree in manufacturing. I don't know how to design anything really other than a piece of paper and pencil. And I've never built a cabinet. So this company is far from something I knew.
Wow. So you're not a joiner, you're not a carpenter, not your background, not what you know, but scratching an internal itch. And I think going back to that whole monopolistic sort of opportunity, I think whether you call that extreme niching down, the riches are in the niches, as they say, or whether you call it blue ocean versus red ocean, market penetration models, however you want to term it, I guess being able to, and even me in my consulting work, I came up with, as far as I know, there's no one else in my space delivering services in the way that I deliver them on a subscription model. And I did that with a purpose. One is I saw that when I was in the game as a merchant, there was no one offering services in the way I wanted to consume them. And secondarily, I found that the traditional way that most, especially consultants, coaches, mentors, whatever you want to call them, deliver services, it's always on a retainer model typically, or a project-based model, and therefore you never know what you're going to pay. And so it can end up being a lot more expensive than what you plan on or budget for, depending on how much work you have done by said consultant. And so I said, look, bugger that. I'm going to come up with a fixed price per month subscription model, all you can eat, just a reasonable fair use policy wrapped around that. And that way it gave my customers confidence that they were, one month they were going to pay $1,000, the next month they were going to pay $10,000. They could have absolute confidence that they were going to get what they were paying for, so to speak. And so I really like that disruptive model mindset and trying to take maybe an old business and modernize it through a new lens or new thinking. And I really like that, what you did. And then I guess at some point you must have brought in some cabinet makers or joiners or carpenters of some variety to help you scale this business. Wow.
Yep. So
And
I'll
how
tell
did
you
you
that
find
next
those
step,
people?
it went, well, you know what? There's a such thing as luck. A lot of people think there's no such thing as luck. It's just being prepared. It's timing when you meet preparedness. So whatever the old saying. Be
Yes.
honest with you, those
Yes.
people, when I pulled out of my driveway, sales agency for one of the largest cabinet shop manufacturers that builds all the equipment is literally across the street. And it wasn't because I moved there because of that. No, they would live there for years. And I did earthwork before that and fire. I literally walked across the street and said, "Hey man, do you know any cabinet guys that are slow that can help me create and design this hidden door? I've created this hardware here and I really need to match it to a hidden door maker or a cabinet maker that can teach me how to do cabinets or could probably build the cabinet potentially and send them to me ready so I could use a horizontally integrated manufacturing process." And sure as heck, we were fortunate. It was 2012, 2013 when the economy hadn't really revved up. And we got a hold of a good cabinet guy in Rigby, Idaho, who helped us design the doors. And then we got too busy for them and we moved down into another more local cabinet shop that helped us scale up even more. And then they took us over, or they didn't take us over. They helped us learn how to build our own manufacturing facility, which we kept such a great relationship with both Merrill Cabinets and Trimart out of Centerville that they helped us set up our factory as we grew. And they said, "Hey, look, we could make jobs that pay us a little bit more money. Let us help you build your own factory. You're getting busy enough that you should be doing this on your own." They literally sent their guys there to help program the machines, set up our line, figure out the flow with their own team from a vendor that we were paying every month. That's the kind of relationship we had and we still currently maintain. So we do a lot of back and forth. "Hey, Tyler, I've got some extra work. I've got somebody that wants something outside of our realm. Would you be willing to do it?" He kicks the hidden stuff our way and says, "Hey, why don't you do this?" So I think there's ways to run businesses are more collaborative and then competitive. And I think sometimes we get a little bit too drunk on our own Kool-Aid that we think we can make every dollar in our space. But truly, I think doing a great collaborative method, not just Instagram collaboration. You see what I mean? Like true business and organic business and great business can be done through collaborating with other people who you may feel are competitive or competitors, I should say. And truly your best opportunities for creativity and improvement to your product may come from a competitor or who you may feel is a competitor and that makes everything better. They give you a little bit of words of wisdom. You give them a little bit of words of wisdom. Your customer has a better experience. They have a better flow. Their customers have better experiences. I think sometimes we get a little bit too worried about what other people are taking off of our plate. And we need to worry more about what we can cut on other people's plate because it does come back.
It does. Karma's a thing. I've experienced it many times throughout my career, and some of my best friends actually have come from this industry. Some of my best friends have come from maybe working in a competitor agency or something like that, and we're best friends to this day. And so I 100% agree with you. Collaboration over competition is a great approach to take. Now, as you started to grow, as you started to scale, as you started to add this second production facility, have you always been direct to consumer always since the beginning? Or did you have a vision, hey, there's going to be two prongs to this business. There's going to be the direct to consumer side of the business, but there's also going to be the trade side of the business. I'm going to work with carpenters. I'm going to work with joiners. I'm going to work with shop fitters. I'm going to work with experts in the field that might be going in to do the carpentry on an entire palatial house, but they don't want to make the freaking hidden doors, right? They have a need for it. They don't want to do it. They don't want to build it. They want to put in the kick plates and they want to put in all the other typical carpentry work type things, but they do not want to do the specialization of these hyper custom hidden door functions. Did you always have a vision that this was going to be direct to consumer and then the consumer would find someone to install that door locally for them? Or did you always have this vision, hey, there's going to be two strings to this bow here?
I think that's a great question. The answer is yes to both, actually. So I'll string you back to the shed business. We did D2C early and I made good money on D2C. You get 100% of the margin. That's a huge thing. And 50% down, at least in the shed business, and 50% on completion. And I think entrepreneurs really need to think about time to cash. We all have an idea that we want to get into big box, and big box is going to order millions of my trinkets and whatever that looks like to them feels good, right? I want to sell 1 million of these things. It feels great. They don't understand that the big box retailer needs margin. not only on top of their margin, they have MET fees and RDC fees and back charges and marketing. And there's a whole bunch of other fees on top of their already steep discounts, which can be 26 to 60%. And then they add the margin stuff on top. And when I say RDC, regional distribution centers, and MET teams, merchandise execution team, and marketing teams. So we get a little bit confused on what's left over. And sometimes, unfortunately, we've seen a lot of great companies launch in big box, whether it be Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, and they literally get out the gate and are broke. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. But so I not to get too off on a tangent there, because I just about did. But what I wanted to say was I started this business in the D2C world because I needed cash. I needed to be able to grow my business, work with a company like yourself that does, third-party building of websites, consulting. I worked with some consultants. They helped us walk through how to do web design, even though I had no money, literally making sub $800 every 2 weeks at the fire station. Whenever I'd sell a door, we had really high margins out the gate. Our average starting door started at $3,000. Now it's $1,200. So we had a little bit extra money to play with. And again, another words to the wise: start your price high, work down. Don't go the other way. Be monopolistic and start more expensive. You can always come down. It's hard to go up. So I thought I'll do a D2C side. Now, coming from the shed business, I sold Home Depot very young, and I knew the horsepower they could bring to a game. So I always had a secondary vision of Home Depot. And the reason for that wasn't because I wanted volume. I didn't have the ability to sell this to scale. I wanted the trust badge per se. The Home Depot badge saying we've been vetted by Home Depot. They said, hey, we've seen their stuff. We've seen their financials. They have the insurance. They have the validity to market to you. And in addition to, I was thinking I'd love their showrooms, because the biggest problem you have is you could be the very best coffee table maker, armoire dresser table maker, and I'm talking in home furnishings. But without showrooms, you really don't exist. It's kind of marketing any space, especially when it comes to furnishings. So I took a big gamble with this thing. It's okay, we're going to sell on a website using, to be honest with you, my first website had a lot of stolen Pinterest pictures and saying, hey, we can build this type of door and this type of door and this type of door, because we never really built any. And to be honest with you, the first 1,000 customers, bless their heart, they had a lot to deal with, because we made a lot of mistakes early on. And I then thought D2C, then we'll build the Home Depot brand. But you've got to be very careful when you introduce those big boxes. I think some people jump that gun because they look at the big numbers first, and they don't consider the footing and foundation level of your business, the base core of what you're sitting on. And if you don't have experience based on kind of any type of flow, let alone cash flow, and those big ones come into play with 30 and 60-day terms, and you can eat up your cash and your credit really fast. And I use a very strict rule in our business that we don't allow big box to go greater than 15% of our total output or revenue per month or per year. So we manage that at a sub 15% of our volume. We either turn it up or we turn it down, but we make sure that it lives in a sub 15% space, which then gives me the cash flow and the ability to carry those bigger ARs. And most bankers cannot believe when they see the revenue we make that we have a sub $100,000 AR at any given time. So
Wow, that is phenomenal. Man. That is phenomenal. And now, if you were to look at your business, obviously 15% or less, big box, lots of D2C in there. How much of the remaining part of the business comes from your carpenters, your installers, your joiners, et cetera, where they need your product for a job that they're already doing?
So our contractor base sits at about 20 to 25% of our total workflow. So between Home Depot sits currently at about 8%.
Yep.
20 to 25%. It varies by season. So that's why that I should know my numbers. I do. If you're asking me in the summertime, it's 25%. If you're asking me in the wintertime, it's 17, 18. So it just depends on when that interior finish gets placed. But we do, again, and our contractors, by the way, my man, do not have an account. We don't do charge account for anybody other than Home Depot and Amazon. That's all we do. Everybody that we work with is 100% pay up front. There's a complication when you do accounts receivable like this, or when you do a 30-day term with a vendor, especially in construction in 50 states. You have to lien. You have pre-lien rules. You have all these regulations, and counties and states all vary. And to simplify my business, to help increase the scale, the ability to scale, we've eliminated any of the confusion. out the gate, we started with 100% up front, and then we'll ship on these terms, right? This is how we ship. And you either accept it or you don't. We've lost a lot of business because we don't do accounts. And fortunately for Murphy Door, this is the advantage of being monopolistic, is that there is no really any place else to go with a reputation. We've built 200,000 plus doors in our career and twice that in hardware. And we're really the best at the game. We have engineers, manufacturing engineers, structural engineers, design engineers. We have a whole fleet of high paid individuals that can make sure that your very expensive dream project is going to work flawlessly. So I find it funny sometimes when people take the risk on a small guy. I think it's great for the small guy. However, it doesn't always work out. And what we have done is, we didn't always have those engineers, by the way. We've built an awesome team, highly educated and highly experienced in fields that make sure these things work. And we pride ourselves on that. And I think it's important for young entrepreneurs to know big tickets, big companies doesn't always equal big net return. And I think the key is not to always worry about that top line number so much, and to make sure that you're making money at the end of the day. You can sell a whole bunch of shit at a loss, but you can't sell a whole bunch of stuff, or you can't sell a whole bunch of stuff at a loss. You can sell the endless amount as long as you're making, and I tell my guys, we need to make 1 penny. I don't care if we're black 1 penny at the end of the year, we can grow forever. But if we're red, we can't go very long. We can go for a while now, but it's not the same as when you're first starting. It's so crucial to ensure that every single thing we do is profitable and that we do the best job at it, because we didn't have the money to replace it. We really didn't. And fortunately for the early birds that didn't have mistakes, they were patient and lovely customers that we communicated with very openly, said, hey, we screwed this up. Bear with us. It's going to take me a little bit of time to earn some money so I can replace your door, but I promise you I will do that. And we did that. And fortunately it worked out.
Wow. And I see that you've also got Murphy's Door signature, which tells me that you created ultimately a line of off-the-shelf doors that have standard dimensions, standard functionality, standard timber, standard hardware, standard everything. And I'm guessing that's how you were able to productize and scale the business. Was, okay, here, we've got these 2, 3, 4 lines. They're going to have standard kind of everything within reason. Maybe you could choose the finish, or maybe you could choose the stain, but maybe that's about it. Maybe you could choose the beveling on the glass or something like that, but we're not going to allow you. Every single door that goes out is not going to be a custom door, because that just does not scale. So you obviously have the custom side of the business
actually
now.
So to be honest with you, ever since we started, the very beginning, we had very limited options. It was like an 80-inch, 30, 32, and 36. And then we thought, hey, everybody can just build their jam around what we offer, because I didn't have the ability to do the scale with high customizations. And currently, every single door that Murphy Door makes is custom. So we have 300 million configurations that run through our systems currently. We process a product every 6 minutes, and every single one of those are one-offs. Every single person has their own unique file with their own unique name on it, with their own unique order ID, and their own unique dimensions, wood type, color, handle, beveled glass. We do 100% of that. And I look at Murphy Door as my laboratory, because I think we can do that for everything when it comes to home furnishings. And then the big game for me is to create a highly customized everything in your home, that you have what you want, where you want, when you want. Empowering people. This is the great thing about shopping local, by the way. I know that there's this big drama about tariffs. What I think is great about these tariffs right now is it's forcing us as manufacturers, and it's giving us the ability to really improve our manufacturing processes to be competitive with worldwide pricing, and to make sure that we're automating where we need to, hiring the right people where we need to, and making sure that our factories are geographically placed in proximity to our consumption base. So as long as we do our math correctly, we should be able to offer our customer anything they want, anywhere they want, anytime they want. Just like the shirt you want. If you want to customize this color or that color or size, there is no difference in the processing. And I've been trying to prove it with Murphy Door. We're talking about hard goods with sheeting and sizing and lock variances. There is so much customization to armoring, literally put your life behind the door, that we can do this in one piece flow and make it highly profitable, even at a competitive price. So it's our mission at Murphy Door to create something that pushes other manufacturers to think outside the box rather than looking overseas for their solutions, to try to focus, how can we do it close? How can we use a proximity of commodity, a proximity of customer base, as well as speed to consumer, and give our customer Amazon Prime experience with 100% customized product. When we get this done, which we're getting really close on the Murphy door and Murphy bed line. We want to then add our whole Murphy lifestyle product line, which would include beds and doors. And on top of that, armoires, nightstands, kitchen cabinets, bathroom cabinets, couches, chairs, tables, like everything that we can create in our factories, which is why I'm here today in Kentucky, is we're putting another fully automated line. We just spent another $5 million on a fully automated facility, not facility, but the hardware that we're putting in here. And that's starting to install tomorrow. I really am investing heavily here in the United States. We will be doing this one in Kentucky. Next is Texas. Next is Pennsylvania, followed by another one, bringing our plants right next to you, our customers, to make sure that you can have one-day freight lane, have localized materials with localized craftsmen, and get what you want when you want it. And I think we can't really look overseas for this answer, regardless of who's our president. And that really doesn't matter. We need to keep our people busy. We need to be not limited to what the manufacturers want as a supplier. You think about your furniture, you're going to go to Ashley Furniture or whatever, and you're like, I love that nightstand. I love that bed, but I wish they had it in a slightly different color. And unfortunately, it's 2 inches too wide to fit in the room that I have. Well, wouldn't it be awesome if you could just go in there and scan it and say, hey, I want this armoire with 2 inches shorter, 2 inches narrower, a little bit shorter in this tone, hit a button, and 3 days later, have it leave a factory right by you. And then have it show up to your home, made in the US at a competitive price, and have it be exactly what you need to fit your space. And that's really been my reason to wake up for the last several years, is I want to make such a difference to the way we think about manufacturing, the way we think about the sales side. Now, I know that what you do is highly specialized in the e-com store base, but imagine as an e-com space, if you empowered your consumer to give them every option they could imagine, and you built your manufacturing around one piece flow and not just the same thing over and over again. It only takes a few little dynamic shifts to be able to do that. The naysayers will say it isn't. I got invited down to Mar-a-Lago to have a little dispute about that. And I finally convinced after 3 days, a few people on how that worked out. And I'm not looking to be right. I'm actually looking for feedback on what my hurdles are going to look like, because I'm not giving up. This is our mission. And I believe everybody would be better. E-com stores will be better served. More importantly, the customers will be better served, which will then make those e-com suppliers the most powerful players in the world. Imagine if Amazon looked like Amazon with 3-day delivery, but everything they were selling was uniquely the customer's choice. Wouldn't that be great? A big dream, but it would be great.
I was saying that if I saw a friend that had this, I'd definitely want one myself. I'm sure that there's a lot of referral business, but what other marketing channels are you typically relying on to drive business for you?
So first and foremost, our big stuff is obviously social media. Early on, I had the fortunate opportunity to meet with a lot of the creators of DIY and HGTV, some of the executive directors that really hooked me up with the opportunity to tell my story on HGTV and DIY Network. And then we had a lot of opportunities to be on a lot of shows. So fortunately, about every TV show you've ever seen on HGTV or DIY Network, they've had a Murphy door at some stage. You name the show, I could tell you which episodes we were on. And Netflix series, from Killer in the Building to How to Build a Sex Room. There's just endless amounts of shows that we've been included in. Well over 100 anyway, and it's really hard to market it all on your trust badges. But we got fortunate early. And I can tell you this, I had a wonderful woman named Susan Lee that worked for Scripps Network, Discovery, and HGTV back in the day. And she came by and she says, hey, you need to advertise. And I said, listen, I have no money. I'm about as broke gets. I have literally negative cash flow every month. So I can't afford or even think about advertising with you guys. She said, I'm going to take care of you. And she put us on a show called DIY I Want That. And it literally aired the night before my credit card got canceled by American Express. And I got like $9,000 in orders that night. And I owed 6 or something to Amex, and I was able to clear my debt, or it might've been 9,000 to Amex, but whatever it was enough that I wasn't sleeping. And all of a sudden I woke up that next morning with the money to pay Amex. So I owe a lot to the Scripps network. And I promised them at some point I would advertise with them. Before she retired, I did. I had the opportunity to spend a little bit of money marketing. But one of the things that we did, obviously, the referral network is extremely important. I know how hard it is to start businesses, and trade shows aren't the same as they used to be. They're very expensive to get into. The Builder Show, we spend almost $1 million every year on the Builder Show, which is an absurd amount of money if you ask me. It's just, if you're not there, you don't exist kind of game. So you have to do that. So we thought early on, wouldn't that be amazing if we could create something that made it so we had showrooms everywhere? And what if I didn't have the opportunity to scale customer service people, and I didn't have I didn't have the money to scale sales teams? How could I do it where maybe I had showrooms everywhere, and those people that had the showrooms could be my sales team, like big box, but using customers that paid full tilt. So we created a software called Pure Brand, and purebrand.io, which is a Shopify-based app currently, and we're moving it to deplatform off Shopify so everybody can use it. But what we've done is we've made it so every single one of our customers can become what we call hosts to our product. So whatever they buy, they're a verified purchaser. They get an invite to Pure Brand. You get then asked to put a couple pictures in a video about the door. It doesn't have to be positive. It can be as negative as it gets. If it's the truth is all we ask. We do not manage the Pure Brand software with the Murphy Door team. It's separate. They are actually opponents. They're obviously wanting to complement each other. However, if there's a negative review, they can't just call Pure Brand up and say, hey, take that down. Otherwise, we won't be pure, to be honest with you. So that's a big no-no in our world. And I want them to be competitive. Yeah, and screw that door up. So at the same time, there's a lot that can be said here. One, those customers then become our hosts. We created a software that allows those clients to log in. Let me back up. You go to our website, you say, talk to an excellent customer. When you hit that button, it'll give you an opportunity to schedule a call. You'll say, I'm interested in a door, or I'm interested in a bed, or whatever product you're interested in. And then you say, I want to talk now, or you can schedule a time on your calendar. You hit the invite. If it's now, it text messages and emails every single host that's available that has the product you're seeking. And then whoever picks it up first gets the opportunity to chat with you. We pay those clients at Murphy Door, full transparency, $50. We don't pay them to say anything specific. It is just $50 for their time, and we ask for up to 15 minutes. So the wonderful thing is, if the guest doesn't show up after 10 minutes, 5 minutes, we pay them $10. But if they perform the call and it connects, they get $50. They can throw mud. And to be honest with you, this sounds really jacked up, man, Jason, but I want the mud. I really want the colors. And I know that, let me preface this, I can't stand Yelp. Yelp has to be the worst platform on the planet when it comes to reviews. It's exactly what the name is. It's like a kicked dog. That's where everybody goes to bitch. And they suppress positive reviews. They literally, we have a whole folder full of 5 stars that are suppressed, but every single 1 star that gets out there, that could be like, you delivered a door on a broken pallet. The door is fine, but you guys don't care about my door. That one won't be, or even non-verified customers, they'll leave them there. So I thought, what if there's a way to make a pure review? I believe the 1-star and 5-star game is over. I believe 1 star should relate to, you stole my money. And 5-star, I don't believe exists unless you mowed my lawn and you made me dinner. If I paid $1,000 for a $1,000 thing, that's a 3-star in my world. Like, yeah. I paid $1,000. I expected a $1,000 thing. I got my $1,000 thing. High five. It was exactly what I expected. And I don't see how that deserves a 5-star. You didn't mow my lawn. You didn't make me dinner. Like, I don't know what that is. But 1 star is for the broken pallet. If that's as low as it gets, it should be theft. So I would like, how could we dynamically change the review platform to where it's more of a sentiment feeling? And even more importantly, how do we create something that allows a 2-way conversation? Whereas, like, hey, Jason, I really loved your services. By the way, I do love your subscription model. I think that's amazing. You're right. When you're running a new business, it's very important to be able to budget your costs and not have a vendor that goes from 1,000 to 10,000. So that idea is beautiful. And I commend you for that, because it's a very, very important for a startup. But at the same time, I'd love it for you to be able to say, hey, man, your service was great, Jason. I can't stand that you were late on Tuesday and Thursday, and my report was a little bit late. But overall, I got what I was expecting. So if I'm going to vote on what I expected and then on top of the negatives, where's that going to land? If I'm in a bad mood and you just stood me up on a deal because you had a long call, 1-star, dickhead showed up late. 5-star, he did what he said, but we don't know the true full experience. So I thought if we could create something that allows the full experience of your experience in shopping or buying with Jason or subscribing with you. And he'll say, hey man, he's late sometimes, he's very busy. He's got a lot of good stuff going on, but when he's on the phone with you, he gives you his full attention and he does what he says. So overall, I'm at a 97% or whatever. And they have this 15-minute question and answer conversation, right? So here's what it does. One, I create a showroom locally to you because we prioritize the IP address around who your neighbors are. And hopefully I can link you neighborly and say, hey, by the way, Jeremy has a door. And I know that you probably live in the same city, potentially have your kids go to the same high school. Now, not only are you buying something you're interested in, your neighbor has, maybe you can reintroduce to someone that you didn't know and you have some likes that are the same and maybe create some other type of friendship outside of that. What it did is, one, gave me a showroom for every single door that I sold. 2, gave me a sales rep for every person that is willing to do it, or a review basis that may have been negative, but it gave me the opportunity to learn to make improvements. So the cool part with this software, if you go into the higher levels of the subscription base, we record every video, we transcribe every video, we give a score to the video. This was a positive, negative, neutral conversation. And then anyway, I thought if we can give them the sentiment score, and then even more importantly, what if we took all those positives that came from the conversation and all the negative that came from the conversation and said, hey, let's give Jason all the pros and cons from the past customer and from the future customer. He couldn't find this on the website. He didn't like this about it. He liked this, but he didn't like this. And then all of a sudden you get the pros and cons. And then on top of that, you get an action plan to it. And then more importantly, when the hosts, your customers, download this app on their phone so they can keep track of how much meeting money they have coming. And if you want to give them a little incentive, the commissions you can, they have an app to use. And then from that point, when they download the app, it then downloads their contacts and syncs all friends to one another. So like Venmo, we introduce friends that potentially you'd be working with or that your customers are working with and say, hey, by the way, why talk to anybody else? Hear anything in your phone? Just give Jeremy a quick call and you can talk about it. There's no reason to talk to a stranger. He's a friend of yours. And that's high level, but Pure Brand has been amazing. Murphy Door's standard conversion rate on our website, we millions and millions of views. We business to our website every year, 10 million-ish. And we only convert about 0.24%, which is still a really high number. However, if they make it into the Pure Brand funnel, currently we're sitting at about 47% conversion. If they go and say, talk to an actual customer and they have a one-on-one conversation and the customer is, even if they're negative, because it's funny when the buyer is getting a response that's from the past customer that's slightly negative, they're actually trying to justify why they want it still. So what's great is, was the door still good? Okay, customer service was a little bit rough. Maybe you had a 20-minute hold time on customer service or whatever that we're trying to improve every day. Overall, do you still love the door? Oh, I love the door still. Man, I'll tell you what, if you have this problem, it's a pain in the neck. You have 20 minutes here and 15 minutes there, and your door shows up on a pallet on the front driveway and you have to carry it in. There's these feedbacks that we get and we know what we can do to improve. But truly, unless you're getting that immediate feedback from a live past customer and a live future customer where they can talk about it to one another, and you basically are in the room watching it and you can't control what's being said. You're like, oh shit, don't say that. And they say it. But honestly, that takeaway is so amazing if you put action to it. So we work really hard on making our customers' journey to deliver what they've dreamed about potentially since they were 2 or 3 years old, and they finally are 50 years old where they can afford this amazing room that they've always wanted. We know how important that is to them. And we know who our customer base is. It's everybody. And a lot of the people that pay the people, it's like, that's who we work with on the day to day. And those guys have a very large voice. So we have to be very careful. And unfortunately, as amazing as our website is, as most amazing as our social is, we don't get to share all the really crazy stuff that we do, the stuff that was super, super expensive because they are the people in rooms and panic rooms and wine rooms and whatever. They don't want to share that stuff and it's theirs.
I love that, and I love even the
I
demo
know.
that you're showing on the when you click on the banner that says get $100 by talking to a real customer, your question's answered. I love the fact that the embedded video that you show there is someone literally walking around their house, literally standing in front of their Murphy door, literally the customer that's potentially going to buy. They're seeing exactly the type of product that they would be buying. They're basically demoing the product in real time for the potential customer and talking them through that product. And I really love that concept. And I agree. I think ratings, reviews, it's so easy to game them. It's so easy to get an incomplete picture of the brand, of the product, of the experience. And oftentimes you're only getting the experience of the product, not necessarily the experience of the vendor of the product. You're getting the experience of the vendor, but not the product itself. And so you need to be able to understand the full spectrum of doing business with a supplier. And that's what this provides. I really like that. And it's pretty amazing that you went out there and you create, because I had someone actually on the podcast that was building something quite a lot like this as a standalone SaaS platform. I had them on the podcast recently, and it's so amazing that you obviously there was nothing out there to do exactly what you want to do. So you said, bugger it, I'll start a technical platform to do exactly what I want it to do. And we'll eat our own dog food. We'll prove it out. And then obviously we can spin this off, and we can also do it for other brands that need this type of real-time feedback. And I guess worst case scenario, you spend $150 for customer acquisition because you give the customer that was talking to a previous customer $100 store credit towards their purchase. Plus you give the referral person $50. So worst case scenario, you pay out $150 to acquire a customer. But the reality is, if you were running AdWords or you
We're
were
spending
running
more
Meta
than that
ads,
on
or you're running
Google.
anything else, exactly. So $150 is actually cheap to acquire a customer, especially if your product is between $4,000 and $10,000. That's a pretty good ROI on this referral marketing spend. So I absolutely
And that one,
love
by the
that. Now, if
way,
we think
is
about,
available. Excuse me, the Pure Brand is available on Shopify App Store. So any company can go in there, they can
wow,
privatize their labels on it, like they put their brand, they drop their videos in the space. It's fully monetized, it's fully available. They can choose their subscription. It's extremely cheap. We charge 3% of transaction cost. And then there's a couple little monthly fees. If you have under 10 hosts, it's free monthly. And we just charge a 3% of the upside on what actually has gone through the Pure Brand section. And then after you go there, depending on how many hosts you have, it goes up. But it's really done amazing work and done amazing things for us as a company. It's really helped us skyrocket, not just sales. And I want to emphasize this. It's not sales as much as it is improving our way we operate as a business, how we handle our customers, getting true feedback, not just feedback, but how that customer feels. Like you can hear it, and you need to, if it's good or bad, as much as we hate to hear bad news, because it breaks my heart when people are upset, that's when we get the opportunity to fix it and make sure no one else has that experience again. So I don't have to feel that again. I don't want to feel like somebody paid $5,000 and feels ripped off. Like I don't want to feel that. I want to feel like they paid $5,000 and would have justified 10. That's my goal. So if I'm having these opposite feelings, I have in my option to fix, which we do. And that's why it's rare, I think, for companies to fish to the negative, allowing customers, positive or negative, to freely talk to your future customers. That takes a brand that is extremely confident in their mission. More importantly, if you can imagine as a consumer and the vendor, it will also direct where products are going. If customers are saying, I hate that they're going cheap, I don't care about the price as much as I want for qualities, you get DeWalt brands, and I'm not to call out brands, but they're going cheap and they're going for price and they give up their really good stuff over dollars. I would much rather spend the dollars, even when I was poor, because I'd rather buy nice than buy twice. And then everybody's getting pressured down in price. So for heaven's sake, stop pressuring price down. Let's go to quality and stay where it matters, where we can pay another $100 and just have exactly what they want forever, rather than go to a little bit less and have it die. I'm passionate about it. I love the fact that people complain about me online. Rather than Yelp, I believe it's one-sided. Google reviews, I think a lot of these reviews are pretty close to dead, to be honest with you. Nobody likes them. I was reading some statistics. 71% of all reviews aren't trusted review platforms. Nobody believes them anyway, because you can hire different companies to fix your reputation. It's your brand, you can't, man. You're either happy or you ain't. And you're either going to say what you're going to say or you're not. And you better take care of your clients, because they are your sales team. They are your showroom. They are everything that matters to you in business. And I truly believe, I hope, whether it be pure brand or not, that it is where we drive the expectations from consumers that they, especially in a product they're investing heavily in, like your business, like my business, when they invest heavily in something, I want nothing more than them to talk to my actual reviews. Even more important, give me 3 referrals. Who are you going to give them? You're going to give them the top 3 referrals. You call Jason, you call Jeremy, and you call Jeff. Those 3 had a great experience with me. So just call those people. What about just opening the catalog to every single customer, that it's all good, bad, or indifferent? You don't get a cherry pick. Pure Brand demands the full download of all your customers. You don't get a cherry pick. It ties into your Shopify app and pulls down all the products you've ever sold, every customer you've ever sold, zip codes, SKUs, everything. And then it sends invites out to those those hosts, which are the past customers.
Wow. I love it. I absolutely love the commitment to transparency, openness, honesty, raw feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. I love that. I love that commitment to learning, getting better, improving as a business. Take your lumps when they're also put your name on a pedestal when that's deserved and earned. I really love that approach. Now, if we start thinking about the rest of your tech stack, we know Shopify, we know the Pure Brand plugin or app. When we start thinking about the rest of your tech stack, what type of ERP are you running? What type of manufacturing software are you running? Is a lot of it built bespoke in-house by your technical team? What type of technology back office are you running today to allow you to get to the scale that you're at and beyond?
So to be honest with you, we are right in the middle of a 1.5 transition into Microsoft Dynamics. That's been a heck of a journey. It's really difficult. So we've scaled all the way to the scale we're at currently, believe it or not. Trello, ClickUp, and Slack.
Oh, wow. Phenomenal.
So we built dashboards off of that. We've built all sorts of cool things with Butler, little things that you just go back and forth so we know what we're doing. It's actually, you can get, obviously as our software stack, it's probably $150,000 a month in service fees. They're expensive, but you don't have to be there, but you do have to have systems. And I think a lot of the time as entrepreneurs, we get dug into what we do as a job and not what we're trying to do as a vision. And if we don't have systems, it makes it really impossible to scale. And I was in this unique opportunity where I was a full-time firefighter paramedic. So I wasn't there every day. And I don't want to say I have a control issue, but I have a slight control issue because I need to know, especially when you're close to broke every single second, when you first start up this business, that you have this impending doom fear that you feel like you need a little bit of control. So we started early with little simple reports that were live, like Google Sheets and Google Word and whatever. And then we did ClickUp when Trello was cheap, and we were able to just move stuff along and build our own little dashboards. And I'm not tech savvy, so I want everybody to know that I don't come from a tech background at all, but they were simple enough to use with a little bit of YouTube University effort and desire to make sure that you know where you're headed. And I think that's an important skill set too. When you start businesses like my first one, I didn't know where I was going. I knew what I wanted to do. My second one, I knew a little bit more where I wanted to go, and I knew what I wanted to do. But the third one, I said, what if I want to go into the hidden door world? What does the end look like? And I always had this vision of $1 billion play. Was there $1 billion play? And I know you hear that. It's almost a mute thing because everybody says it. But I'm like, okay, what does that look like? That looks $600,000 roughly. Is there a marketplace for $600,000? Yep, there is. There's a more than a marketplace for that. So then I thought, what would it take to get to the steps? So I created this end vision, like the goal of what it needs to look like at the end. And then I benchmarked backwards. I actually had this handwritten 8.5 by 11 paper where I scaled out 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16. And I drew out all the way into 26. And to be honest, we were off in scale to the negative of what I'd forecasted in 2024 by only about $2 million. So I was really close when you're thinking about 10 to 12 years. And I did a 15-year forecast on what it would take to get to that piece. Now, I spent a lot of time doing some research, and I also had an understanding of what it took to scale manufacturing. Again, we're not offering a SaaS thing. This is truly building manufacturing facilities. It's ping pong between sales and manufacturing every day. I need to get sales. Sales get so busy that then manufacturing can't keep up. And then manufacturing is saying, hey, you need to slow sales down because we're running way behind, or you need to speed cells up because we're bored. So it's this constant ping pong dynamic you have to work within. And when you get to the point where you've surpassed their capacity or throughput capacity, then you have to order. The difficulty is most of our equipment's a year in advance to order it. So you have to know where you're at a year early to put forth that $3 to $5 million gamble to say in 12 months, we'll have the need. And that's where it gets scary. And I think what I've messed up on in the past is I didn't understand what true throughput was supposed to look like. And I had a kind of an exaggeratory look of this is 100% capacity. So we won't order until we hit 100% capacity, which truly that's a false thing. You got to be happy with 80 to 85% of throughput capacity because you have downtime and maintenance and broken equipment and no shows. And that's what I screwed up on. But and several other things, by the way, I screw up every day. I don't want to sound like that's what I screwed up on. There's a lot of things, but ultimately the massage of going between cells and manufacturing is a little more difficult than just having people apply for software subscriptions that we see a lot in Utah right now.
Yes.
So
wow,
that's a big
what an
thing.
exciting
SaaS
journey.
everywhere.
I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed with how you've gone about this, the methodical nature and approach that you've applied to this, the tremendous amount of heart and patience combined with ambition and wanting to do right by your people, wanting to do right by your customers, even if it hurt you in the short term. Got a lot of respect for what you've built. I know it is not easy. I've worked with lots of manufacturers, worked with lots of distributors over the years. And I tell you, doing what you do is not easy. I know because I help to architect solutions, technical solutions for manufacturers and distributors. And a lot of this stuff, there is no off-the-shelf silver bullet solution. And a lot of this stuff is building as you go, building as the need arises, trying to take a much more holistic long-term view than a lot of businesses are capable of taking. And ultimately backing yourself to fill those orders that, hey, if I'm going to go out and spend $5 million 12 months from now on a new factory with new equipment, then I got to back myself that I'm going to be able to fill that pipeline with work pretty smartly after that thing goes online. Otherwise, we're going to have a real problem on our hands in terms of cash flow. So look, I got a huge amount of respect for what you've built, a mindset behind it and how you've got to where you are. That's amazing. As we come down to the end of our time together, if someone, you said you've had these collaborative sessions with the former companies that used to buy products off of and they used to build on your behalf, kind of contract manufacturer. If somebody wants to learn from you, if they want to reach out and they're building a new factory or they're getting into the space or something like that,
Yeah.
what's the best way? I'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile and to your website in the show notes. But other than that, how do you like people to reach out and have a chat with you?
We stay active on Instagram, jbarker482 on Instagram. We do a lot on Facebook and LinkedIn. I always answer, or jbarker@murphydoor.com. You're always welcome to email me. Just FYI, I do travel a lot between these different facilities and all the things that we have going on. I will get back. Don't be frustrated if it takes me a day or two. I'll get back to you. And I love to help.
Absolutely
I truly
love
do. In all sincerity, I do love helping.
I really appreciate that. Now, as we do come down to the end of our time together, this is where I get to flip the script. I get to hand the microphone over to you. I get to let you ask me one question. Any question you like. It can be personal or professional. Mr. Jeremy Barker from Murphy Door, what is your question for me today?
All these new algorithm changes in social. We're seeing a big dive. It's a lot harder to go viral. It's a lot harder things done that we used to. And on top of that, the pivots that Google throws at us every day on different rules, like they change the algorithms up. What would you do as a business that's heavily involved in e-com to stay ahead of those curves? Or how do you prepare yourself, one, and then how do you help prepare your clients too, to ensure that they're being aware and actively ahead of what's occurring in those places?
Yeah, it's super interesting. That's a very good point. Now, I'm not a digital marketer. I don't sell digital marketing services. I'm primarily a technical and operational consultant, process consultant, org design, etc. But I do a tremendous amount of marketing of my own personal brand, and I put out content every single day. I'm active across many different platforms, got nearly 540 episodes of the podcast out, really produce content. I spend about 8 to 10 hours a week producing content still to this day, and I'll never stop. And what I'm learning, especially, and I've redirected all of my browser queries now. I haven't used Google search in I don't know how long. I have a plugin in the Brave browser that redirects all my queries to ChatGPT. And I'm finding that they're an answer engine as opposed to a query engine, and it's quite a different thing. But I noticed that in my space and in my vertical, in the area that I play in, I come up either at the top or very near the top for all the queries. But one of the things I'm learning about these generative engines, these generative AI engines, is that from an authority perspective, an online authority perspective, they're not just looking for a specific keyword match. They're also taking into account how long you have been active in market. How far back can they go and find content from you? And I've been producing content at scale for over a decade. And so for me, I don't do any paid and performance marketing for my business. And I'm very grateful I don't have to. But what I'm realizing is that the more places where you can be active, the more places where you can be distributing your content, and the longer term you do so, the more weighting these generative AI engines will give to you in terms of an authority position within their system. And so I think it's the new version of SEO tactics. Some of them work really well with generative AI engines, some do not. But for me, I'm really doubling and tripling down on purely the content output side of things, because we're going through an absolute sea change. I'm seeing the same thing as you. I used to go semi-viral on LinkedIn pretty routinely. Now even me, and even with my experience creating content over a decade, I'm struggling to get cut through on a platform like LinkedIn. Almost every single major social platform is going pay to play now. And that's annoying, but it is what it is. Every platform seems to go through that same evolution. And so for me, I'm like, I just want to be in places where I can control my own content. So I want to be I've got over almost 1,500 videos uploaded to YouTube. I'm interacting with people all the time on Reddit, Quora, X, less so on X, but more on Reddit and Quora, platforms like that. So for me, I'm trying to embed myself in the communities that have the type of customers that would typically be interested in my content. And then when I turn up in those communities, I'm really just there to give. I'm really there to answer questions. I'm really there to help. I'm really there to be a resource. And then, hey, look, if that at the same time puts me on the radar of somebody that might be interested in my services, awesome. But I would say greater than 50% of my business comes from referrals, just like you. And look, without referral business, I think we're all in trouble. So I actually like the fact that the major search engines and the major social platforms are losing a little bit of their stranglehold on the market. They're slowly being replaced. It hasn't happened fully yet, of course. The likes of ChatGPT, the likes of Grok, the likes of Gemini, we're starting to see them become the norm, especially for the younger generation, to make their queries instead of going to a regular Google search. And so it's an exciting time to be in this game. So I would say keep doing what you're doing. You'll figure it out. You always have. And you'll figure out a way to keep the algos happy. But I would say if you can decrease your dependence on any one platform and diffuse and make sure that you're more populated across the TikToks, the Instagrams, the YouTube shorts, the YouTube long format, if you can get more breadth than just depth in the platforms that you're visible on, I think it's just like you said. You said, I make sure that 15%, no more than 15% of our business comes from big box. I would say no more than 15% of your business should come from any one marketing channel for the exact same reason.
That's a great way to put it right back in. I love that. It's a really good way to pivot that and showed that it's the same thing, truly. You shouldn't have that much concentration on anything.
I love it. Listen, my friend, you've been outstanding. Have really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for your time. I can't wait to speak to you again soon. If you'd like to get mentored by Jason for free, head over to greenwoodconsulting.net, scroll to the bottom of the page, and click Get Mentored by Jason.